what shortcode is, and then I'm going to show how you can implement it into a plugin. So if I just go back to my WordPress admin, I'm going to create a new page. Doesn't matter if you create a new page or a new post, as long as it's either. And I'm just going to give a quick title of shortcode test. And I'm just going to show basically what a shortcode is. So a shortcode is basically a way of quickly writing a HTML code snippet. So let's say you wanted to write some text, specifically red. So span class, no, span style equals color red. And then just this is red text. So normally you couldn't actually get away with typing this straight into WordPress unless you click the HTML tab. But maybe say you want to include this text by default with a simple, much shorter way of writing it, which would be similar to writing just one HTML tag to cover an entire thing. So let's say we wanted to put a copyright disclaimer and we had a HTML snippet for that, but we wanted to simply write it as if it were a HTML tag, copyright disclaimer. But obviously that wouldn't do anything because it's not. There's nothing to say what that'd do or what text it'd contain. And this is where BBcodes come in, because you could get away with this if you implemented a shortcode function, but instead of using it as if it was a single HTML tag with no closing tag, it would simply replace the less than and greater than that's around an element with square brackets. And this can either be like this as a single HTML tag with no closing tag, or similar to the full HTML tag, which would be copyright disclaimer, which would be like that, but obviously with the difference of the square brackets and putting content in between. So to do this, we just need to implement it with what WordPress provides as an API to write shortcodes and program them. So I've just got the WordPress codex up with the page on shortcodes. As you can see with the square brackets, this example provides a example gallery. You can also see it's possible to add attributes to shortcodes, similar to HTML again with its style. And I'm just going to implement the second code example into my existing project. So if I just paste this in under the uninstall function, and this is the hook again. So before we've already used two hooks, the activation and the deactivation. I'm just going to stick this extra hook underneath here, which this basically allows you to write the shortcode. So in this instance, the shortcode would be called bar tag, and I'm just going to rename that to copyright underscore disclaimer. And similar to the other hooks, the second parameter of the function just simply states what's the name of the function that needs to be called when this shortcode is written in any page or post. So I'm just going to call this copyright shorts. I'm just going to copy and paste that. And as you can see, this is the function, it's already been written. and commented out here is an example of the tag and what could be possibly written. So I'm just going to rename this again to copyright disclaimer. And I'm going to use the attribute value as selecting a certain license. So let's say license, and then a default value of GPL. And this is the only attribute I want to use in the shortcode, so I'm just going to trim off this bar. And here you can see in the function call there's a parameter passed called ats, which is attributes, and WordPress knows how to work with the attributes you've written in a shortcode by including this in the function call. And inside the function we have another function called extract, and then inside the extract function is the shortcode attributes function. And this is the function that extracts, well, actually, sorry, I got that mixed up. The shortcode ats attribute provides some default values for any attributes you want to use or basically set up in your shortcode, and provides you a way to set some to default if they haven't been written in the actual shortcode. So let's say we had a second attribute in this shortcode, which could possibly be copyright holder. We could write another shortcode underneath this first attribute, which should now be called license. So I'll call this second one copyright holder. And we can choose to set a default value for this by writing an attribute value next to the array items. So by default I want the license to be GPL, and the copyright holder I'm just going to leave blank. But for any attributes you're using in a shortcode, whether you're going to use a default value or not, they need to be basically written within the shortcode attributes function to basically initialize them and allow you to use them. And that is also part of the extract function, which you can see calls the shortcode attributes function as the first parameter, but it also has the ats variable, as the second parameter. So this code segment in total just sets up what parameters you want to use and look for. The attributes / parameters you want to use in your shortcode. So this will be license, and I also want to use copyright holder. And it just lets you use them in the return function, such as this. So this variable here, surrounded by the curly brackets, refers to what would have been the first attribute of the shortcode, which I renamed to license. So I just rename this variable to license. So what's returned by this function is basically if I just refer back to the actual page I'm writing, if I just write the shortcode now, which is copyright disclaimer, whatever I return in that function, the shortcode function, it will basically replace the shortcode and write, instead of the actual shortcode itself, whatever is returned from that function. So at the minute I've got it saying foo equals, and then the first attribute of whatever's written inside the shortcode. So I'm just going to write something that makes more sense, relevant to the kind of shortcode I'm writing, which is copyright. So the first attribute is the license, so I'm just going to write this content is licensed under the, and then this would quote the license chosen in the license attribute. And then copyright, we'll just say the year, nothing dynamic at the minute. Copyright 2012, and the name of the copyright holder, which is the copyright holder attribute. So now that that's done, I can just save this, and all we need to add now is these attributes. Just write the whole thing just in case. Just need to add this shortcode as it is, which is just a single shortcode tag, so there's no closing tag, and with the two attributes. So I'm going to keep that as GPL, and as a copyright holder I'm just going to put my name in. And if I just publish this, and just as long as the plugin's enabled, you should see the switch out. So I'm guessing at the moment I don't actually have the plugin activated, so I'm just going to plugins, activate. So if we go back to this page, which is called shortcode test, and just go to view page, you can now see it's swapped out this here, which was the shortcode which I wrote, and it's replaced it with what I wanted to return, which is this static text with the two attributes placed in certain segments of the text. And you can see it's just perfectly mirrored here with the attributes I passed it. So that's the basics, and there's one last thing. I'm going to cover it in a further tutorial, which is putting content in between the shortcode, which you can see here, and that's using the opening shortcode tag and the ending shortcode tag, and putting content in between and then accessing it. But I'm going to include that in another tutorial because I'm running out of time a bit, and it's just something that needs to be considered at a later stage. But for now, that's the end of the tutorial.